Good afternoon, everyone. I'm just going to give everyone a few seconds to connect to their audio and the video, and then we will get started. Awesome. Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Michaela Hartle, a program assistant at the Connecticut Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation. And today we have Adam Rodrigues joining us. He's the vice president of Forge, and he's going to be discussing how Forge helps Made in Connecticut stay in Connecticut.
Awesome. Thank you, Michaela. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I really appreciate it. As Michaela mentioned, I am Adam Rodrigues. I am the vice president of Forge. And Forge is a nonprofit that helps innovators connect with regional manufacturers with the ultimate goal of bringing your product to market. Quickly want to thank UConn CCEI program for having me here. Michaela, Jen, thank you guys, and the rest of the team. Really appreciate having the stage to talk to you guys about this topic today. And I want to thank all of the attendees for your time today. And just a really quick story on how I found CCEI and why I'm so excited to be here today is, with the work that I do, I take any innovator that has a physical prototype and I work with them to prepare them to engage with manufacturers and suppliers and design engineers. And then once they're ready to engage, I facilitate those connections. And what's unique is that we do it locally, which is really cool. Connecticut has over 4,000 manufacturers, so there's so many resources right in your own backyard. And I'm a big proponent for really utilizing those resources to help with your product development. And I'll get way more into that as we go along. But one of the first events that I went to when I was new on the scene in Connecticut with Forge is the CCEI 15th anniversary event. And, I've been doing this work since 2015. So I've gone to a lot of innovator events. I've seen a lot of startups tabling and showing their prototypes. And this event was really impressive because almost every startup there had not only a physical prototype, but were either had products in market or were very close to launching products in market. And you don't often see that. A lot of the startups that I work with or at these events are usually in that prototyping phase. So I think it's just, gives a tremendous amount of credit to the program that CCEI has. And just wanted to applaud you guys for that and explain why I'm so excited to be here. So moving on. So like I said, Forge, we are on a mission to help startups and innovators navigate the journey from physical prototype through to commercialization and impact at scale. So what does that mean? Like we, uniquely, we help innovators prepare to manufacture. You get a lot of innovators that we work with and startups that we work with that are brilliant. They're so amazing at coming up with concepts and things that'll change the world ultimately, right? Filling gaps in the market. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they know how to design something to be manufactured. It doesn't mean that they know how to manufacture a product. And so that's where Forge is uniquely fit, is that we work with these startups and these innovators to take that idea, prepare them to engage with manufacturers, and then make those connections locally. And we do this across all different sectors. So anywhere from medical device to clean tech to robotics, transportation, and I'll show you on another slide, one of our biggest one is commercial products. So essentially, if you have a product that's physical in nature, we're just here to help you out. So as I mentioned, we've been doing that. I've been doing this work since 2016. Forge has been an organization since 2015. We've been primarily funded to do this work in Massachusetts until last year. So it's a really exciting time that we're fully funded to operate in Connecticut. So my whole job right now is going out and about in Connecticut, meeting design engineers, meeting manufacturers, and building up a strong network of people that want to help support innovators and want to engage with innovators. Then I'm going out and I'm building up networks of innovators and saying, where are you at with your physical prototype? Where are you at your development stage? And how can I build up resources around you, make right fit connections to the makers and designers that are in your backyard? And you can see here that, since 2015 at Forge, we've worked with over 600 startups and innovators. And I want to focus on that 86% because a lot of people don't know that if you are a startup that has a physical prototype, the average success rate for that startup is about 5%. So with these 620 startups that we've worked with, 86% of them since 2015 are still in operation today. And we do that by connecting them with regional resources. And again, I'm going to get into why that's important, but you can see that right now we have over 500 suppliers and designers. I know one of them's even on this call today. Mac, thank you for joining. That we are working with closely to send innovative opportunities to. And so as we ramp up in Connecticut, I'm really eager to learn from you guys, who are you and how can we help support what you're doing and help bring your product to market. And here's just a quick snapshot overall of the top innovator sectors that we work with. As you can see, consumer products is a big one. Energy, generation, and storage. That's a really big one for us because I'm not sure if anybody on this call has heard of Greentown Labs, but Greentown Labs is out of Somerville, Massachusetts. They're the largest clean technology incubator in North America. So picture a 100,000 plus square foot organization that has over 100 startups working under one roof, all with clean tech solutions. That's where Forge was born out of. We saw that a lot of these innovators they didn't know how to manufacture, right? And they had a lot of things that they would do that would ultimately lead to failure, right? So when you have a physical prototype, every dollar is so essential. If you make a design change, there's dollar signs attached to that, right? Whereas if you're developing an app, right, there's nothing physical in nature. It's all programming time that you're throwing at product development. With a physical product, there's material cost, there's design time, there's all working with the manufacturer, working with a design firm, all those things cost so much more money than it does with a software-oriented startup. So, that's why it's so important to tap the expert resources around you. And so at Greentown, what we found is a lot of these brilliant minds coming out of MIT, Yale, Harvard, they were coming to Greentown with these concepts and failing because they would automatically think that they needed to send their design overseas to be made, right? Only to find out that the design they sent over there was over-designed, right? There was tolerances that were too tight. There was materials used that were too expensive. If they had worked with a local manufacturer, you have that one-on-one FaceTime. You can have those discussions to say, you might want to tweak this, you might want to tweak that before you go to production. And so I think that's what adds to that 86% is really developing those local relationships and really using these resources that are they're right here. So there's a snapshot of the sectors that we're working with. And then, these are our core offerings. This is what actually helps to bring these products to market. What Forge does is early on, we address the crucial gaps to market by, if you're somebody that comes to us and you have a 3D printed prototype, it's just a concept, you have no idea how to scale this thing, we're going to provide you with educational resources. We do thought leadership pieces, tapping our supplier experts all the time to talk about things like design for manufacturing. We talk about things like IP and best practices there. We talk about things like funding and at what point are you at on the funding journey? Some people are at friends and family, some people are at the venture stage. How do you identify where you're at on that journey? We provide you with all of these tools so that when it is time to engage with a manufacturer, you're ready to do that. So the way that we do this is let's just say you are a startup that has a physical prototype. You reach out to Forge. We're a nonprofit, never costs you anything to engage with us ever. We make sure that you have a physical prototype. That's the entry point, right? So if you have a napkin sketch that hasn't yet become a physical reality, if you reach out to us, we'll get you to some resources in our network that may be able to bring you to that physical prototype stage. But most of the startups that we're working with have a physical prototype already. And then we meet with you one-on-one and we say, tell us more about your prototype. Tell us what kind of materials you think this is going to use. Tell us, have you thought about designing this for scalability, or is this just a design for concept? We take all of these data points, and if you're ready at that point to engage with a manufacturer, you have some money, you have identified your design is scalable, you know what materials you need, what kind of manufacturing processes you need. That's where Forge then taps our broader network of suppliers, and we make right fit introductions to manufacturers right in Connecticut. So there's a huge advantage there. I don't know if any of you have ever tried to reach out to a manufacturer blindly, but if you have, it's not super easy. I offer free opportunities for manufacturers to bring new business in, and I still can't get in touch with the right manufacturer sometimes without a direct introduction. So what's cool about Forge is that we know all the people already at the different manufacturers, at the different design firms that are there and ready to talk to you. And they lean on us to make sure that what we're sending their way is right fit for them. So we'll work with you to get there. And we do that. And then, you can see on the flip side of this slide, these are some of the top requests that we get from our startups and innovators. Things like plastic 3D printing, injection molding, precision CNC machining, printed circuit boards. And the biggest one we get a lot is design for manufacturing. It's that stage I was just talking about where you have a concept, but you're not quite sure how to design it so that it can actually be scaled at a reasonable price. So we have all of these connections in our network. Connecticut, it's starting to build out really aggressively, and we have, I think, maybe over almost 50 suppliers in the Connecticut network right now. And that's just, we've only been here for a few months, so that's going to grow even more. All of them eager to engage with people that have new concepts and ideas. I just wanted to show our team really quick. I know it's not super relevant, but the reason I show our team is because we have combined over 100 years of manufacturing experience on our team. And so I think that that's important to know, that you're working with trusted individuals that understand the process, that are there with your best interest in mind. And again, like I said, being a nonprofit, this is all funded through the state of Connecticut's Manufacturing Innovation Fund. It's funded through CT Next. So if any of you have a physical prototype and would like to engage with Forge, it's completely free. So I just wanted to quickly touch on why Connecticut. Back when COVID happened at Forge, we were engaging with probably about 30 or 40 new startups a year. And then COVID happened, and we thought that it was going to drop off even more. But as you all know, there were supply chain disruptions. And what happened for Forge is we were seen as the place that has local supply chain. And startups were reaching out to us from all over the country, all over the world. And that 30 to 40 startups a year became 300, almost 400 startups a year that are started reaching out to us. And so, with Connecticut, we had, I don't know, maybe a handful of startups that reached out during this time and said, we really want to engage with Connecticut manufacturers. Can you do that for us? And at that time, we weren't able to because we were only funded to operate in Massachusetts. So we did some research and we found out that, Connecticut is actually one of the top states for research and development activity. They have over 4,000 manufacturers. So it made a lot of sense for us to apply for funding and make a pitch to the state for us to be here. You also have colleges like UConn, Yale, Central Connecticut State, University of Hartford, University of Bridgeport, all with entrepreneurship and innovative programs. And the startups that are developing products out of these universities need, we want to keep them here in Connecticut. And a good way to do that is to establish their supply chains here. So that's part of the work that we're doing as well. But it's a really awesome place to be a startup. There's so many different support systems that I'm learning about. Even at CCEI, there's a new program called Launch. They essentially are helping out with business planning. They're helping out with marketing. They're connecting you as well to industry experts. So a really good time to be a startup in Connecticut. So we talked about this a little bit earlier, manufacturing here, why does it matter, right? So there's a few different things to consider, and I've seen them all firsthand. Oftentimes, you have a design, you send it overseas, it hasn't been vetted for scalability. So you could send your product over to an overseas company to have it, let's just say, injection molded. And that injection mold costs you $20,000. So you send your design files, you send them your $20,000, and all of a sudden, months later, you get your product back, you get your first 10,000 pieces back, and you realize that there was one little tweak you needed to make. And so now all of those are scrap, and what, you only had $20,000. So now you're pretty much either back at fundraising stage or you're out of business. Whereas in that same situation, if you had engaged with Forge, we would have connected you with design engineers, local injection molders. They would have looked at your design. They would have been able to tell you face to face, this needs to be tweaked, that needs to be tweaked. You can be there when your product comes off the line for the first time, right? You have the resources to drive to your manufacturer. You develop that one-on-one personal relationship with them. And that goes so far. A couple of other things to consider too with manufacturing overseas. There are often hidden tariffs, long lead times. Costs can start to add up. While the price tag can be shiny and look awesome compared to regional manufacturing, there's a lot of hidden cost that a lot of people don't realize that could ultimately be, the close of your business. Not to mention IP laws. IP laws are a lot different overseas in some places. So over here, you're well protected within the U.S. IP laws. Whereas if you could send something overseas and see it on the home shopping network the next day, right? So all of these things are considerations. My main point being, if it makes sense for you at the stage you're at to manufacture locally, we want to support that. And we know that there's times where that might not make sense. And if it doesn't make sense for you, then that's completely fine. We want to make sure that we're giving you the best connections possible. And you have that decision to make. But we at least want to support those right fit connections regionally first, so you can test the waters there and see if that's going to make the most sense. So these are just a few of the startups in Connecticut specifically that we work with. Flow is an awesome startup. They're still around right now, and they are making a device that in an environmentally friendly way prevents ice dams from building up on your roofs of commercial buildings and of residential buildings. We've been working very closely with these guys for a few years now. We've made several connections to different design firms and manufacturers locally that have helped them to develop their prototype. Another thing that Forge does, which is really cool, is, while we do offer some product development grant funding once a year, we are also out there and learning where else are there grant opportunities, where else are there venture opportunities, where else are there angel opportunities. So if you're a startup that is in need of funding, we're always trying to identify the mechanisms and support systems regionally that can help you out. And the reason I bring that up is because Flow recently came to us, and we've been working with them on manufacturing. We know that they needed a little bit of money to connect with their next level of manufacturing. So we told them about a new product competition that was happening right here in Connecticut through the Entrepreneurship Foundation. And they recently just won a few $1,000s by entering that contest. And I think there was probably about 7 or 8 other Connecticut-based startups that Forge is working with that won thousands of dollars through this competition. So we will tell you about those things. We're not only just connecting you with manufacturing, but we want to connect you with the resources that will allow you to manufacture as well. And then, as I mentioned, and I'll throw some dates in the last slide, but as I mentioned, Forge is going to be running a similar competition. We call it our product development grant, and it's non-dilutive funding that you can use for building your prototype or scaling your prototype. So this also works. I want to touch quickly on, it does work well for the manufacturers and suppliers in Connecticut too. There's oftentimes with small to medium-sized manufacturers where they're so busy that they cannot get out and meet innovators. They want to, but they can't. They just can't leave the shop. And so what Forge does, we're kind of the boots on the ground for them. We're going to UConn and going to the 15th anniversary event. We're going to Yale and going to their capstone event, and we're discovering, where are the innovators that want to connect with these manufacturers. So we're bringing them these opportunities. These opportunities, they allow manufacturers locally to discover new markets. They allow them to fill capacity gaps, and they allow them to make really cool products, which for those of you that don't know, manufacturing, there's a huge workforce issue. They cannot bring on enough people to work in manufacturing. And so working with these innovative products can be, kind of sexy to a young kid that's looking for a career, and is considering manufacturing. If they're developing the newest wind turbine, or they're developing the newest, solar panel, or device that's going to save people who have cancer, that's really cool for them. And so it's a really good play for the regional manufacturers as well. And this is just one regional manufacturer that we work with. I don't know if you guys have heard of CCAT. They're right in East Hartford. But we've been working with them for years, and we've sent them over 18 startups to work with. They've signed 3 contracts with those startups, which have resulted in over $20,000 in revenue for them. So this is, again, these are just, re-emphasizing the fact that these opportunities are really good on both ends. They're great for the startup, and they're great for the regional supplier as well. All right, so a couple of save the dates before I turn it over to Q&A. May 5th through May 19th, we're going to launch our product development grant for Connecticut. So if anybody on this call has a physical prototype, I encourage you to be on the lookout for this application. It's going to be a pretty light lift, not too big of an application. We're going to be giving away over $15,000 at our June 5th Forge Connecticut launch event. We're still working on the details of the location of that. But for any of you that might be interested in attending this event, we're going to have a startup pitch competition. We're going to let startups table at this event. We're going to invite all of our regional manufacturers and designers. It's a really good opportunity to meet Forge and show your product if you have one. Encourage you to apply for this grant funding. And that's it for me. I'm going to pause right there and take any questions that you guys have.
Yes, thank you so much, Adam. And please feel free to either unmute yourself or throw some questions in the chat. We received one quick question in the chat during the presentation. And just to answer that this recording will be up on the CCEI website within the next few days, if you would like to share it with your network or rewatch it for resources.
Great. Any questions? Any initial questions?
Regarding the grant application, is that going to be available on the Forge website, or are you guys going to circulate that via email?
Good question. Thanks, Eric. Yeah, we are going to make that available on the website. We'll also circulate it through social media, through email, and also we're going to be giving that out to some of our ecosystem collaborators, such as the CCEI program, to hopefully distribute as well as an opportunity.
And do you mind if the city of New Haven distributes it to their ecosystem? Because I work in economic development and our clients would probably jump at this.
Oh, no, not at all, Eric. We more people that can promote this in Connecticut, the better.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And you'll see my contact information here on this slide. Feel free to shoot me an email. Be happy to connect on a call, learn more about what some of your initiatives are, and see how I can help out.
Absolutely, will do.
Awesome.
Hey, Adam, great presentation. Just a question on the suppliers you're working with, the sort of list or directory of suppliers you're building in Connecticut. Is this something you're going to publish eventually on your website, or are you going to require a face-to-face or a meeting first with a startup before you suggest suppliers to reach out to?
Yeah, thanks, Rob. I'm so happy that you asked that question. That's something that can often get overlooked, the importance of that. So we don't list those suppliers on our website, and that's strategic for a couple of different reasons. Number one, we really do want to engage with innovators in that one-to-one nature. I really think it's part of the secret sauce that makes this work. Oftentimes, we'll have a startup come to us and, say, I need to engage with an injection molder. I need to have, 100,000 of these made. And we have at that point the opportunity to say, okay, well, how many customers do you have, And they say none, or they say 10. And that gives us the opportunity to kind of intervene and say, okay, well, before we connect you with an injection molder, it might be a good idea to do some more customer discovery. In the meantime, it might be a good idea if you have 10 customers to 3D print that before you go to that injection molder. We have that happen several times. So it gives us a little bit of an opportunity to triage, but it also gives us the opportunity to get a deeper understanding of the exact capabilities they're looking for, so that when we connect them to a manufacturer or a design firm, we know that we've already vetted through it. We know how much funding you have. We know exactly what you're looking for. We know how prepared you are. And so we're not wasting your time with that connection, and we're not wasting the manufacturer's time with that connection. Does that answer your question, Rob?
No, it's perfect. Thank you.
We do have one question in the chat. Can you please elaborate a little bit on the design scalability and what support can you provide?
Sure. So it's really important to note that, at Forge, our expertise is identifying the experts that can do these things. So we don't do anything with reviewing design files or vetting if your design is scalable. What we do is ask some leading questions where we can deduct if you've engaged with the design for manufacturing firm already. Do you have someone on your team that understands design for manufacturing? And if not, then the first step might be to engage with somebody like Mac, who's on this call today at Connecticut. That's exactly what those guys do, right? They'll take a look at your idea and your prototype, and their job is to make sure that that design is scalable. So at Forge, we don't do it, but we connect you with the people that do that work.
Great. And it looks like we have time for one more question if anyone would like to either put one in the chat or unmute.
I guess, can I ask maybe an easy one? So if we're interested in scheduling an appointment, is it contacting you or going through an online form? What's the best way to kind of get the process going?
Sure. Thanks, Emily. So I would say you can definitely contact me. I am going to then put you in touch with our senior program manager, David. He does all of the one-to-one startup intake, but you can, if it's easiest for you to email me, please feel free to do that. Your second option is to go to forgeimpact.org, and you can schedule an appointment with David directly on that website.
Great. Thank you so much. And thank you so much, Adam, for this great presentation and for discussing the amazing resources that Forge offers. And I hope that everyone in attendance today and that watches this video really takes advantage of this opportunity to connect with Adam as well as the rest of the team at Forge. So thank you again, Adam. We appreciate your time.
Thank you, Michaela, and thank you, everybody here. I really appreciate it.